My brother framed me for theft to get our father's business, so I collected evidence quietly and took everything while he watched his world burn. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I grew up believing loyalty meant something until my own brother taught me otherwise. Our family looked perfect from the outside, a big house, thriving family business, and Sunday dinners where my father demanded silence while he watched the news. But underneath the surface, everything revolved around appearances and control. My father, a self-made man, ran his construction business like a military base. My brother Ryan and I were his soldiers, except Ryan was the golden one. While I was the one who followed orders, Ryan had charm. The kind that could make my father laugh after a bad day or convince him to overlook late reports. I was the opposite, quiet, methodical, the guy who stayed late balancing invoices. "You're too rigid," Dad would say, even though I was the one keeping the business running. Ryan could crash a truck and somehow walk away with a pat on the back. I could save the company thousands. Dad would just nod. When our father's health started to falter, I thought it might finally be my chance to step up. He began letting me handle operations, meet with clients, even sign documents under his name. Ryan didn't take it well. I could see it in the way his smile tightened whenever Dad praised my work. He started making snide comments. "Don't get too comfortable, little brother. Dad's just letting you babysit his empire." I laughed it off, pretending it didn't bother me. But late at night, I'd catch Ryan pacing in his office, whispering on the phone, his tone sharp and defensive. Something about the way he looked at me like I'd stolen something from him made my stomach twist. Back then, I told myself it was just sibling rivalry. I didn't realize I was already standing on the edge of a trap he was building piece by piece, and soon, I'd fall right into it. After Dad's health scare, everything changed. He wasn't as active in the company anymore, and for the first time, my name started appearing on internal memos, right beside his. I didn't care about titles or hierarchy, but I could feel Ryan's eyes burning holes in my back during every meeting. He used to joke around the office, make everyone laugh. Now, he sat in silence, drumming his fingers, pretending not to listen when clients praised me. One afternoon, I found him standing in Dad's office, flipping through folders on the desk. "What are you doing?" I asked. He smirked. "Just making sure you're not rewriting history while Dad's out sick." His tone was casual, but there was venom underneath. I told him to knock it off, that we were supposed to work together. He just leaned against the desk, grin widening. "Relax, you've already won him over. You're the golden boy now." That sentence stuck with me. Golden boy. The irony made me sick. Over the next few weeks, small things started going wrong. A shipment got delayed because someone forgot to approve the payment. Client calls went unanswered. When I tried to fix it, Ryan would shrug and say, "You're in charge, remember?" He made it sound like a compliment, but I could tell he wanted me to fail. One night, while I was working late, I saw his office light flick on through the frosted glass. He was sitting at his computer, scrolling quickly, minimizing screens whenever I walked by. I asked what he was doing. "Just cleaning up your mess," he said flatly. Something in his voice sent a chill through me. I didn't know it yet, but those messes he was cleaning would soon become the evidence used to destroy me, and by the time I realized it, the damage would already be done. It started with a phone call that didn't make sense. One of our biggest clients, someone we'd worked with for over a decade, called to ask why their payments hadn't gone through. I checked the records immediately, confident it was just a clerical error. But the payment logs showed something impossible. Multiple transfers marked as completed under my name. My name. I remember staring at the screen, my stomach twisting. I hadn't processed a single one of those transactions. The account number they were sent to wasn't familiar, and the digital signatures looked identical to mine. Too identical. The next morning, Dad stormed into the office, red-faced and shaking with anger. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted. He slammed a stack of papers on my desk. Forged invoices, altered ledgers, and email confirmations that looked like I'd authorized thousands of dollars in fake payments. My voice cracked as I tried to explain. "Dad, I didn't do this. Someone's using my credentials." Before I could finish, Ryan stepped in, pretending to play peacemaker. "I didn't want to believe it either," he said softly. But I checked the backups. Everything points to him. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw exactly what he wanted. Me ruined, gone, erased from Dad's trust forever. I tried to fight it. I begged Dad to let me show him the original server logs. But he cut me off enough. You've embarrassed this family. Humiliation hit like a physical blow. Decades of loyalty gone in seconds. The employees avoided my gaze. Even our secretary, who'd known me since childhood, looked away. Ryan patted my shoulder and said, "Take some time off? Let things cool down." It sounded like concern, but his smirk said otherwise. And as I walked out that day, I had no idea my entire life was about to implode. The fallout was brutal. Within a week, everyone in the company knew. The whispers started in the hallways, half pity, half disgust. I heard he stole from his own father. Can you imagine? I'd walk into a room, and the conversations would stop, the air thick with judgment. Every time I tried to defend myself, the evidence shut me down. Fake screenshots, emails with my digital signature, it all looked real. Dad refused to meet my eyes. He'd pass me in the office and mutter, "You were supposed to be better than this." I tried to tell him I was being framed, but his faith in me had already snapped. One afternoon, he called me into his office. Ryan was sitting there, arms crossed, pretending to look disappointed. Dad didn't yell this time. He just said, "I can't have a thief representing this company. You're suspended indefinitely." Suspended. Like I was some stranger, not his son. I walked out, my chest hollow. The humiliation didn't stop at work. Clients withdrew their contracts. Friends I'd known for years stopped returning my calls. Even my girlfriend Anna started avoiding me. When I finally cornered her about it, she said, "I just need space, okay? I don't want to get dragged into. Whatever this is that cut deeper than anything else?" The night I left the office for the last time, I looked back through the glass windows. Ryan was already sitting in my chair, laughing with Dad's old partners. He caught my eye through the reflection and raised his glass like a toast. That's when I realized this wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was victory, and I was the trophy he'd just taken. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The weeks that followed felt like free fall. I lost everything: my job, my reputation, and the respect of the man whose approval I'd chased my whole life. My savings ran dry fast, and I moved into my car, parking in a quiet lot near the river where no one would see me. Nights were long and sleepless. I'd sit there staring at the dashboard, wondering how my own brother could look me in the eye and destroy me without flinching. Mom was the only one who reached out. But even her comfort came in whispers. "Don't tell your father I called," she'd say softly over the phone, her voice trembling. She'd slip me small amounts of cash, enough for food and gas, and then hang up before Dad came into the room. That broke me more than hunger ever could, seeing her trapped between love and loyalty. One night, while scrolling through old messages on my phone, I found a number saved under one of our former clients, Mr. Harris. He was one of the few people who hadn't cut me off completely. Out of desperation, I called him. To my surprise, he answered. "I was sorry to hear what happened, son," he said. "But I always found it odd that those offshore payments started right after Ryan took over." "Offshore payments?" That phrase hit me like lightning. He mentioned it casually, but it was the first real clue I'd heard, something that didn't line up with the story Ryan had spun. My mind started connecting dots. The late nights, the phone calls, the sudden secrecy. For the first time since my life had fallen apart, I felt something other than despair. I felt suspicion, and buried beneath that suspicion, something colder was beginning to form resolve, because if Ryan framed me, I was going to find proof and make him choke on it. I started small, just late-night research on my old laptop in the backseat of my car. I still had limited access to a few archived company files through a shared backup system Dad never disabled. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start piecing things together. Line by line, I went through transaction logs, email threads, and supplier invoices. That's when I noticed something odd. Multiple authorizations using my old credentials, but all stamped with Ryan's workstation ID. I couldn't believe it at first. It was too clean, too calculated. He hadn't just framed me. He'd done it using my own identity in a system he controlled. I needed solid proof, something I could show beyond a doubt. So, I reached out to someone who used to owe me a favor. Mark, our former IT manager. We met in a dimly lit diner off the highway. Mark looked uneasy, glancing over his shoulder before sliding a flash drive across the table. "I shouldn't be doing this," he whispered. "But your brother? He's not who you think he is." Inside the drive were archived server logs, emails, and time-stamped access records, all showing Ryan's logins during the so-called missing funds period. When I opened the files that night, the truth hit me like a freight train. Ryan had used a dummy shell company to siphon money overseas under a fake business name, RH Solutions. Initials. The arrogance made me sick. That's when I stopped being the victim. I started documenting everything, taking screenshots, screen recordings, even printing copies to store off-site. I knew one wrong move could alert him, so I smiled through the pain, telling myself, don't rush. Don't confront him. Collect, build, wait, because this wasn't about clearing my name anymore. It was about destroying his. A few weeks later, I showed up at the office again, cleanshaven.com, and acting like I'd moved on. People were surprised to see me, but I smiled through their awkward silence. "Just came to grab a few personal things," I said lightly. In reality, I was watching, listening, observing every move Ryan made. He looked untouchable. New suit, new car, the staff hanging on to his every word. Dad had started coming in again, proud of how responsible Ryan had been keeping things afloat. I played along. When Ryan smirked and said, "Didn't expect to see you here," I shrugged. "Guess I missed the family chaos." He laughed, thinking I'd finally accepted defeat. That was exactly what I wanted him to think. Over the next few days, I made quiet visits under the pretense of helping Mom with paperwork. Each time, I copied files, snapped photos of documents, and collected fragments of evidence no one would notice missing. Mark helped me remotely recover deleted data from the server, digital ghosts of transactions Ryan thought he'd buried forever. Every discovery made my hands tremble with a mix of fear and adrenaline. Then one afternoon, I overheard Ryan talking to a supplier in Dad's office. His voice was low, confident. "Don't worry. Once the merger's done, I'll handle everything personally." My brother. "He's not coming back." Right. My jaw clenched. That merger meant full control of the company and Dad's final signature. As I walked out, pretending not to hear, I caught my reflection in the glass. I didn't look like the man who'd been humiliated months ago. I looked colder, sharper, because for the first time, I wasn't surviving his betrayal anymore. I was preparing to weaponize it. Ryan's confidence turned to arrogance, and arrogance made him sloppy. I watched him roll into work late, flash his Rolex, and brag to Dad's partners about modernizing the company. He approved extravagant spending, a new fleet of company trucks, office renovations, even a private weekend retreat for the top executives. On paper, it looked like success. But underneath, the cracks were spreading fast. Suppliers began complaining about delayed payments. One vendor called Dad directly, confused why checks were bouncing. I wasn't in the room, but Mom told me later, Dad's face had gone pale. That same week, 2 longtime employees quit without notice, citing ethical concerns. Behind the scenes, I was feeding the fire. I'd started sending anonymous emails to board members, attaching pieces of the financial truth, invoices from Ryan's dummy company, bank transfers under RH Solutions, and screenshots from the server logs Mark helped me recover. I made sure each leak was perfectly timed, never enough to cause panic, just enough to raise eyebrows. Then came the audit request. One of our investors, someone Dad deeply respected, demanded a formal review before signing off on the merger Ryan was pushing. Dad was caught off guard, and Ryan brushed it off with a joke. "Let them look. I've got nothing to hide." I almost laughed. He really believed he was invincible, that no one could touch him, that I was still the broken brother in the background, licking his wounds, but I wasn't that man anymore. I had the truth, I had the timing, and I had the one thing Ryan never saw coming: patience. Because the fire I was lighting wasn't meant to scorch, it was meant to burn everything he built to the ground. Timing is everything when you want to take someone down from the inside. And Ryan, in all his smug self-assurance, had handed me the perfect moment on a silver platter. He'd scheduled a massive client presentation, the one that would seal the merger and elevate him to full executive control. Everyone important was going to be in that room: Dad, the board, senior staff, even outside investors. It wasn't just a meeting. It was a coronation, so I planned accordingly. I worked with Mark to gather every last thread of damning evidence: high-resolution PDFs, time-stamped logs, screenshots of transfers, emails linking Ryan to the offshore account, everything organized into a neat, encrypted folder. Then I created a delivery system. A timed email blast, programmed to send right as Ryan opened the meeting. But I wasn't done yet. I printed a hard copy too, hundreds of pages, neatly bound. I wanted them to see it with their own eyes, not just on a screen. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. I sat in my car outside the building, rehearsing the moment in my head over and over. Would they believe me? Would Dad finally see? Or would Ryan find a way to twist it all again? I almost backed out. Almost. But then I remembered sitting in that same car months ago, freezing, starving, discarded like garbage while my brother smiled in my father's chair. That memory hardened something inside me, so I shaved. I dressed sharp. I walked into that building like I still belonged, because deep down, I did. Ryan greeted me in the lobby, pretending to be surprised. "Didn't think you'd show," I smiled. "Wouldn't miss your big day for anything." And as the elevator doors closed behind us, my phone quietly counted down the seconds. The conference room was packed. Glass walls, sunlight pouring in, the smell of fresh coffee and expensive cologne hanging in the air. Ryan stood at the head of the long polished table, his voice smooth and steady as he welcomed everyone. "Thank you all for trusting my leadership. Today, we take the final step into the future of this company." I sat at the far end, back straight, watching him perform. Dad was beside him, proud but tired. The board leaned forward, eager for the merger proposal. A projector screen lit up with financial charts, glossy branding, Ryan's name in bold. Then, exactly 3 minutes in, phones started buzzing. 1, 2. Then all around the table. Investors frowning, brows furrowing. Dad's assistant whispering urgently in his ear. I watched Ryan hesitate. "Is something wrong?" he asked. One of the board members cleared his throat, holding up his tablet. "What's this, Ryan?" "This email claims you've been embezzling funds for over a year." Ryan's face drained of color. "That's ridiculous," he stammered. This is fake." But it wasn't. Each recipient had received the full dossier, scanned invoices, IP logs, proof of the dummy company, offshore account numbers, and emails with metadata tracing back to his credentials. Dad picked up the printed binder. I'd quietly slipped to him just before the meeting. His hands trembled as he flipped through it. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally he turned to Ryan. "Tell me this isn't true." Ryan looked at me. For the first time, there was no smugness, just panic. I don't know what this is," he said, his voice cracking. But no one was buying it. Security was called. The investors stood up. The deal collapsed on the spot. And I just sat there, watching my brother's world fall apart in real time, exactly how he had planned mine too. The silence after the explosion was almost worse than the noise. Ryan was escorted out of the building, still sputtering weak denials. No one defended him, not even Dad. Especially not Dad. I remember watching my father stare at the binder like it was radioactive. He didn't say a word to me as Ryan disappeared down the hallway in cuffs, just sat there, his jaw clenched, hands trembling. The following days were a blur. Legal teams got involved. Auditors swept through every inch of the company. The board suspended all merger activity indefinitely, and Ryan's name was scrubbed from internal records. Charges were filed: fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. It was everything I had dreamed of. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. Just tired, Dad finally called me into his office. Same room where he'd once screamed at me for being a disappointment. Only now he looked smaller, older. I was wrong, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. About everything. I nodded but said nothing. The truth was, part of me had waited my whole life for that sentence. But now that I had it, it felt hollow. He handed me a folder of formal reinstatement papers, co-ownership documents, control over major company decisions. I want you to run it. Like it should have been from the start. I took the folder and left without another word. Over the next few weeks, I made changes. Fired Ryan's loyalists. Rehired good people who had walked out in protest. Cleaned up the books. Quietly returned payments to clients who had been overcharged. The office started to breathe again, but every time I walked past Ryan's old office, I couldn't help but pause, because even with him gone, the damage he'd done still echoed in those walls. And I wasn't sure it would ever fully leave. A few months after the dust had settled, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name in Ryan's messy handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before finally opening it. Inside, his words spilled across the page, desperate, pitiful, and somehow still laced with excuses. I never meant for it to go that far. I was under pressure. You were always Dad's favorite, even if you couldn't see it. And then finally, I lost everything. Can you please help me get back on my feet? I folded the letter slowly and lit it on fire in the kitchen sink. Watched it curl and blacken, every word turning to ash. I didn't feel anger, just clarity. Ryan had taken everything from me, my reputation, my family's trust, my home, and I had clawed my way back without stooping to his level. I didn't need revenge. I had justice. Dad eventually stepped down from daily operations, and I took over fully. But I changed things. I ran the company with transparency, fair hiring, regular audits, bonuses for staff that had stuck around through the chaos. I also created a fund quietly, Mom's name, for employees in crisis. Because I knew what it felt like to fall and have no one reach out a hand. Sometimes people still ask me what happened to Ryan. I just say he made his choices. But the truth, he watched his world burn because he lit the match himself. And me. I rebuilt mine from the ashes, stronger, quieter, and without him in it. Because loyalty means everything to me, and now I give it only to those who earn it.